Hey everybody, so we're in the shop today. I wanted to spend some time going over TIG welding the next couple of days. Now, TIG is TIG, and that's tungsten inert gas is what that stands for. It's another arc process. And we've done stick welding and wire feed welding. TIG welding is just another arc process in that family of arc welding. And so rather than spend much time going over theory today, I kind of want to just go over the parts of the machine and you know, basically how things work. So like you know, wire feed welding or stick welding, we have a big transformer box machine, and we've got two main leads coming out of there. We've got a in this case called a TIG torch, and once again we have our ground clamp because we have to complete our circuit. Okay. We've also, you know, the inert gas in TIG is also argon. We were using a CO2 argon mixture with wire feed welding. Well, in TIG, we could use CO2 argon if we were going to do steel welding, but in TIG we do a lot of aluminum welding. So in that case, we're going to use 100% argon, which is a really good shielding gas. It's better than CO2 argon. The only difference is it's more expensive. So we have our CO2 argon tank and our regulator, so we can control the amount of gas that comes out. Now, you'll notice a new thing that we've added here, a foot pedal. So with TIG welding, you have a varying degree of control over the amount of current that you're sending out. And so the further you push down the pedal, the hotter and hotter and hotter your weld gets. So if I push it all the way to the floor, depending on what I have the machine set, I can make the weld much hotter. If I have it up quite a bit, the weld cools down. The advantage of that is that we're able to vary the amount of current flow and the size of our weld, the heat of our weld, as the metal heats up. So like when you start on one end of a piece and you start welding, the metal's cold. By the time you get to the other end of the piece, the metal's going to be hot. Well, with TIG welding, we can adjust for that constantly as we're going. Now, a lot of times with TIG welding, we'll use filler rods. You know, well, we'll go with the TIG torch next. Okay. So our TIG torch, inside of here we have our electrode, and I have the electrode loose in here right now. I'll take this apart so we can see what this is all about. This tip right here is basically to hold our electrode. Our electrode are these tungsten rods, and the tungsten rod is just what it says. It doesn't melt really easily. It's considered a non-consumable electrode. So like with stick welding and wire feed welding, we were melting the stick and we were melting the wire to become part of the weld. Well, with TIG welding, this should never melt. We don't want that to become part of the weld. We're only using it as an electrode source, so we're using it for something to take the arc from. Okay, and so inside of our TIG torch, once again, we have a nozzle that puts gas around our electrode. This is just a collet that holds the electrode in place, and we usually want our electrode either flush with the end or out just a touch or in just a touch. You know, basically our electrode should be right there at the very end. Now, the difference that's hardest for people to get used to with TIG welding right away is that this thing actually never does touch anything that we're going to weld. The moment that we touch the tungsten to something, it gets contaminated, and then we have to remove that contamination. So we never actually touch the tungsten when we weld. All we do is hold this close to it, and we push the pedal down. And basically the voltage gets so high that the arc will just jump out of this thing to whatever we're welding. Whereas with wire feed welding or stick welding, we have to actually physically make contact. In this case, we do not have to make contact. We're just going to call in a really, really high voltage to ionize the air to create that arc. Now, we don't have to use filler rods with TIG welding. We could just rely on the arc to fuse two pieces together, and that's sometimes what people do. But oftentimes we use filler rods, and so I brought a few different filler rods out here. And I have two different kinds. First of all, this This type of filler rod it's aluminum filler rod. It's made for aluminum. You can see it's nice and shiny and silver. This is steel filler rod, and it actually has the same color and look as the wire out of wire feed welding, because it's the same stuff. The rods themselves come in different diameters, and obviously the thicker diameter rod, the thicker steel or thicker material that you're welding, the thinner diameter, the thinner that you're welding. The way that you would weld when you're TIG welding is you would have your foot pedal ready. I like to have my foot pedal on the other side, just like I'm driving a car. I'd have my TIG torch in one hand like this, and my filler rod in the other, holding it like a pencil like this. Obviously I'd be wearing lots of safety equipment here, like a helmet, coat, gloves. But this is how we would be welding right here. I'd have my TIG torch here, my filler rod here, ready to add the material. And we take off and start welding. Now, I had a video previous to this one that showed you how to do some TIG welding and the safety behind it, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time on that here. But I just wanted to take this basic time and talk about the parts of the welder and how the basic process works. Tomorrow we'll talk more theory in depth. That's it for today, everybody.